event today. Parag Ekbote is our speaker today. He graciously agreed to do this workshop for us. He has been an enterprise sales leader and has been part of fairly large corporates where he has led sales organizations, have done sales across the globe and have built playbooks around it. And we thought that founders who sell into enterprise segment can learn quite a bit.
So predominantly my experience has been selling to large enterprises. When we talked about large enterprises, it's been to selling to larger banks, and I've run GTMs practically in every market. So that's been a great experience, and I've been fortunate to do that. I have some investments in a few startups, which I wouldn't call them startups necessarily, because when a company runs for 5-6 years, it's no longer a startup. It's definitely in a phase where they're moving up the chain. So I've got a few investments of my own, which we work with, and yeah, I'm here to share whatever I can, but more importantly, also learn from all of you. So yeah, that's it. So I think this is just what I've attempted to do here, is just to kind of make a distinction between what enterprise sales, people have all kinds of definitions for enterprise sales. They talk about large account sales as well as small and medium businesses. Everything lumps into enterprise sales. Some people start at the enterprise level, but then they, because of whatever reasons, I think I heard someone who's going down the chain now, and so on. But the characteristics are very, very different. The characteristics, if you look at from a scale or sales cycle, or for that matter, the whole ecosystem, it's a pretty interesting play here, right? If you look at the challenges of scale, we are looking at larger enterprises. Their problems are bigger. Their decision making is pretty consensus based. So you got to, it's typically like that thing, iska sign leke aao and uska sign leke aao, and those kind of things, right? So it's something which you need to have a lot of patience for, right? Whereas on the SMB side, typically the decision makers are pretty small. The complexity is where they're trying to solve a given problem rather than trying to really overall or do a complete transformation. So in larger enterprises, usually whenever you're going in, I have seen that the best sales methodology for larger enterprises is always when you go as an approach of a transformation. That's when you really get paid very heavily. Whenever you talk about a simple transformation against a point solution within a larger enterprise has no meaning unless and until it starts saying that, okay, I'm zooming out and I'm going to help you solve a much larger problem, right? So that's some of the distinctions which I wanted to make. So enterprise sales and the success really is predicated on a few things. Obviously, patience, persistence, proficiency, and I'm very well aware that when we are in the stage that we are in, you definitely don't have any of the three. You don't have patience, obviously, for obvious reasons. You don't have the deep pockets to spend. But what is in your control is definitely a good process. And I think that's something which I'm really going to talk a lot about today, because if an enterprise sales or sales of any kind or marketing or GTMs, when you follow a certain process, you keep tracking it, you tweak it, that's when the success really starts beginning to happen. Again, it's very important for you to understand that in enterprise sales, the process defines everything, because good salespeople will come and go. Bad salespeople, obviously, you want them to go, but the process really keeps you true to the outcome, right? So this is the typical marketing funnel. I'm not going to spend too much time on the marketing part, which is the first 4 strips there, which I think a lot of you already do in some form or shape, right from looking at different marketing campaigns, looking at how do you generate leads, and so on and so forth. What I'm really going to focus on is after MQL becomes SQL, after the marketing qualified lead becomes a sales qualified lead, then what is it that you need to do, right? So now in your case, typically in the enterprise side, you're probably you're attending exhibitions, you're going into conferences, you're going into different other conventions, you're doing some LinkedIn-based marketing. You have the LinkedIn Sales Navigator as a tool that you're using in order to kind of do some account-based marketing. There'll be so many things that you're doing in order to kind of get the leads in play, right? So I think that much, and we were discussing this morning over breakfast. While B2C has cracked that part very, very well, B2B definitely there's a lot of need in order to kind of crack that in whatever way. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that today because our topic is enterprise sales. Maybe another topic we should talk about B2B, specifically on the marketing side and the GTM around that. So typically these are the different stages. You're doing a lead capture, typically through social media, website, webinars, emails. You're looking at tracking of those leads, and that happens through the direct sales channel, which is where enterprise software sales, in my experience, has always been the most lucrative thing is direct sales channel. You can't substitute that, unfortunately. Depending on which stage you are in today, it may differ. But in the long run, you've got to have feet on street. You've got to have people who are going and talking, because you need this engagement that happens over many, many months. I think nurturing, we talked about. I'm not going to spend, like I said, too much time here. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you really want to do anything, like I said, it's extremely important to have a sales process. Each organization has got to have a sales process, and most importantly, it has to be a well understood sales process to the entire team. So what is the sales process? I think all of us know what a sales process is, but just for the sake of everyone, it is a very structured, step-by-step things that a salesperson or your organization, depending whether you're a founder, whether you're a sales manager, whoever, is doing structurally, so that you know what the end outcome is. So each action that the salesperson takes has a certain reason why that person is taking that action, and therefore your deals are moving forward. That's what a sales process really attempts to do. So therefore, it is a framework that guides the sales team on a journey. It is also very important to have a sales process, because the churn, the highest churn after software engineers in any team is the sales people. Because in a company like Oracle where I worked, if the salesperson is not performing for 3 quarters in a row, you're out. So the churn that happens, so the next person who comes in, if there's a very well laid out sales process, it becomes that much more easier for retraining and others, right? It obviously is very important, because where are you going wrong? What are you not doing right? It's a great tool in order for you to kind of go deeper into and try and understand where are the problems, where are the flaws, what is really something that I need to doing, and so on and so forth. And that's very important to identify areas of improvement. And the most important in any of our, and I heard that I'm not able to, these are long sales cycles, I'm not able to monitor these well. And as of now, of course, when you're in a phase where you're 1 million, 5 million kind of a thing, you at least know all the deals by heart. You know what you're forecasting. But when your business starts growing, the biggest challenge that all of us have is, how are you going to forecast? And fine, today you're not listed, but tomorrow when you get listed, how are you going to get quarter on quarter that number in place? And therefore, sales process becomes that much more important for you to forecast your revenue numbers, right? Now, what is the ideal sales process? Obviously, the ideal sales process has to be customer-centric. It has to be, so you need to understand how are your buyers buying, right? It's very, very important for you to, before you start selling something, you talked about, Ashutosh, you spoke about, you figured your ICP now. But that ICP, you must have obviously gone through a whole bunch of 3 years before you came to your ICP. But and in the attempt, if you really think back, what really has happened in that entire flow is you try to go closer and closer and closer to what your customers or your typical ideal customer profile requires, right? And that's really, so every sales process has to be built keeping your customer in mind. It has to be obviously very, very clear and actionable. So all the stakeholders within your ecosystem, whether it's your sales managers, whether it's your founders, whether it's your delivery people, whether it is your support guys, everybody needs to understand that it is what is the language of sales. This is a common language that everybody, if I say that, oh, I'm projecting this for this quarter, if this deal is for the quarter, you very well need to understand, everyone should know, oh, if he says that this is projected for this quarter, this is what it means. These are the criteria that it's meeting, right? Unlike saying that, oh, my gut feel tells me that ye ho jayega, and it never happens. That 3 months is 6 months and 8 months and 20 months, and you have no clue as to why have you lost it, right? So therefore, it is extremely important to have replicable thing. Obviously, it has to be predictable, where each stage and the flow, you should know that what is the entry criteria of that stage. When you're moving, let's say, a deal from saying that, oh, this is a prospect, now we're suspect and it's moved to a prospect, or this prospect is moved into, I'm forecasting this deal, you've got to, there has to be some logic to it. There have to be some entry and exit criteria to doing that. So sales process actually helps you do that. Run through this, yeah. So, I think so from, we were talking about the sales process and it has to be predictable. It is very important to have one. Just to kind of do a quick recap, but most importantly, this is a SPIN framework. This, I think, is a very popular framework which was given to our industry by Xerox, and Xerox was one of the best sales machinery in the world. And they're the ones who came and cracked this thing to saying that, okay, this is the framework our sales organization should be running, and right from the suspect, prospect, approach, negotiation, and so on. But what this really, I'm talking about in a nutshell, it's a set of actions which we've been talking about, right? Importantly, there is another thing which is a sales methodology. And this is where, when you're selling a box, when you're selling a copier, when you're selling a printer, the life is very different, right? And maybe SPIN framework works, this framework works very well there. What in our kind of thing, where you're doing an enterprise sale, it's more consultative. In many cases, it's very, very consultative. And that's where a sales methodology becomes very, very important. Okay, and so because on the other hand, like he said, there are so many personas, and every organization has some kind of a psychology. And you are selling into a psychology of the organization rather than selling a product, saying that I'm solving a problem. It doesn't work that way. So that's a fundamental difference between, and now you have to determine for yourselves, where do you want to play? Are you playing in that product-led sales stuff? Then your approach towards that is going to be very different. But if you are going to get into the enterprises that we are talking about, which is more consultative-led, then sales methodology becomes very, very apparent for you, right? So you need to make, there's a difference, there's a huge difference between. A lot of people use this interchangeably. You know, sales process, sales methodology, sales process, it doesn't work that way. These are two very distinct approaches to the market, right? So typically there are many such methodologies which are there. There is SPIN framework that I think a lot of you must have heard. There is something called challenger sales. You talk about MedPick, right? MedPick is something that we talked about, solution selling, and so on and so forth. Now, each of those have their own set of do's and don'ts, pros and cons, and so on and so forth. What we are going to this is what we are going to try and unpack a couple of them, just so that you know what I'm talking about. But before you choose a methodology, And I'm assuming that all of you are looking at methodology at this point in time. You're going to be doing it based on three factors. One is the customer factor, which is basically, it's very crucial for you to look at the annual contract value, for example, right? The methodology you need to choose. If it's a small SMB and the contract values are very, very small, you don't necessarily need probably a methodology which is very, very complex. You need to make that determination. Only you know what your products are selling into, the cost of acquisitions, and so on. Now, what is the buying behavior of the client? Okay, how do they buy? Is it a small, high velocity kind of a purchase, or is it this consensus, large 6-8 months of cycle, 3 vendors minimum, procurement, negotiation, all that stuff, right? It is very important for you to understand that nuance, which is a more customer factor. The second factor is the product factor, which is basically to say that how easy is it for your product to get adopted in these organizations. Again, if you're selling into banks, you are bound to go and integrate it with 20,000 applications. You will be expected to, right? So there is a complexity around it, which also means that you are going to talk to the architecture team, you're going to go and talk to the whole bunch of other guys and so on, right? So you need to understand that. So use that as a factor when you're choosing which methodology you want to deploy. And then, of course, the market factors, which is, customer is already aware of the needs, or here you are the one who's expected to uncover those needs, right? These are, again, very different.
I think it's
how do you define an enterprise? I mean,
is
it 1 billion plus or something?
No, it depends. The way I define, depending on the product category, if I'm going to sell, in my case, if I'm selling a payment system to a bank, it is at least a $20-30 billion asset size. So that's a very different ballgame. If you're selling a document management or whatever you do,
document intelligence,
not document intelligence platforms that you're selling, probably I don't want to pick
50 million is generally
50 million.
50 to 100 million is minimum revenue that we look at. They are not enterprises in our definition as well.
So those are SMBs in my
yeah.
So those are different. So there maybe a product-led approach probably we talk about.
No, that's the minimum. That's the minimum threshold. We don't go below that. And enterprises we have defined as 1 million plus.
Okay.
But then, I'll also qualify this with where you are in your sales journey, right? So, for example, you could have a company with maybe $1 billion revenue with just 5 sales people, right? Almost starts qualifying into enterprise. So, the revenue of the company, again, coming from, so for example, it might be company selling to sales team. I would disqualify $1 billion revenue company because I don't want to sell to 5 sales people because it's a seat.
Right.
Again, how do you define your ticket? But $1 billion company with 100 sales people, now we are talking.
Yeah, for us, what really matters is the number of documents and number of pages processed.
Right. So you have to look at that, right? That aspect. So now at Tasker, it's nothing to do with revenue. It's more with how many employees in the company, because we are selling benefits. So how many employees will take medical insurance?
Again, there, the first point I think makes a lot of sense. Where are you in your journey? Where are you in your journey? You may want to go to $1 billion bank.
We are already billion plus.
No, I'm saying, I'm making it generic.
Right.
But you need to decide where are you in your journey, based on which you will make a determination whether you have that thing. And of course, the second aspect is how is your license structured?
And the geography.
That's a very important
enterprise. In fact,
in fact, the reason why we look at revenue is because we believe, and it is a wrong belief to some extent, we know, but we believe that it's an indicator, along with the industry that they are into, it's an indicator that probably their document-centric processes are heavy. And our usage will behave. But sometimes we have seen that that belief or that assumption may not be correct.
So that's fair enough. Also, enterprise in India would be a medium in the US.
Correct.
If you go by the regulation.
Yeah, and like for example, you have to make a determination that whether your product is really shaking the customer out of a slumber, or so are you really challenging the status quo, as I'm saying? If that is the case, then it becomes at a very different level, the conversations. So therefore, but if you're in your case, if it is they're already doing something, you're a better alternative to what they're currently doing, and that's what you're trying to propose, then it's a different story. So it's very contextual is what really the answer is.
Yeah, I have a very peculiar problem.
Sure.
We may be small, but because of the nature of the platform we are selling, which essentially piggybacks a larger product, say like an Oracle ERP, we are forced to deal with enterprise customers, which in our meaning is 5 billion plus turnover.
Sure.
In fact, much more.
So Fortune 500 only.
Frankly, I forgot Fortune 500 or 100, but these are the ideal, like what you call that, ICP, where our platform makes sense for them to use along with them. So we are forced, I mean, I don't know about many of your products, but some products, by nature, only a large customer will be interested in it, probably in this patent database or in a loyalty management platform, I don't know. So sometimes you are forced to go after only a large customer. And secondly, I just want to understand later on as you go along, simple methodology for complex product, complex methodology for simple product.
Absolutely.
So what I notice is, typically when we deal with enterprise customers, it is always because they have been forced to deal with enterprise customers, it is always consultative selling. And in consultative selling, always it should be a founder or co-founder led. A salesperson can help you to open a door, make a connection, but he will not understand your whole value proposition and product. I'm talking about products, not services, as good as the founder. So it is all, I mean, one of your co-founders have to take a lead and be responsible for the sale.
Yeah. But in my view, any good logo has a lot of value.
Right.
Yeah. So now it's up to you how you want to leverage that logo. Right? If you've landed something in the US and now that you want to break away that whole SI in between and you want to break that wall and move directly yourself, there are ways you will have to choose out of the 40 customers or 30 customers you have. I would first really go deep in analyzing which of those 40s are my friends and get the 5 top ones. And my only job for the next 12 months is going to be cracking them, right? Cracking them in terms of where else they can take me and what they can do with me. So where I'm saying is it's not what you want to do with those logos. Now you've landed it. Your credibility is established. How well you leverage your credibility within an enterprise is up to you now. Currently you are second degree of separation from them because there's a SI in between. But I would say the faster you get into those 5 accounts, the faster you start mapping those accounts, the faster you go and say that, oh, by the way, the stuff that this migration of the cloud that I've done for ERP, it's me, right? When you start pointing that thing to you, that's when you'll be able to leverage that. And then they'll say, oh, what else do you do? This is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. And they will find ways to help you. It is extreme. The beauty about enterprise sales is the fact that it's a relationship. People buy from people. But after the relationship gets established, you can be shameless in asking business. Shameless. So, and that's what you need to do. You need to go in front of them, ask them, I need more business. I'm ready to do this for you. And they'll find a way to get you in. And that's how you start growing. So it's not counterproductive. I'll just quickly run this. So we came to consultative selling, right? So we're talking about product selling. which is obviously very, very product centric, and you talked about features versus value, right? So this is your features versus value, and you think that, okay, this is one product which is going to fit all, and that's beautiful because we are in the business of building products. Unfortunately, the buyer doesn't think that way in an enterprise. The buyer always is thinking about, I want to solve a pain, I want to solve a problem, and my pain, as I know it today, but 6 months down the line, my pain may be this plus 20 other things, which I have not been in a position to uncover. That's where the scope creep starts and all that stuff. So might as well, instead of you focusing and going through as a product lens, if you start doing your homework much ahead and go the entire consultative selling lens, which is basically emphasize on the value, that is where you start. So it is more prospect focused, it is more pains focused, it's more what is the business outcome they want to achieve focused, as opposed to saying, this is what my product does, this is what it will do, this is what it should do, so take it or leave it. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, in an enterprise. So you need to start thinking about, you may be selling a product at the end of the day, but if you change your approach in selling product to an enterprise, it becomes different. So you got to just flip it on its head. Most importantly, in consultative selling, which is what we are talking about, whether it's you or whether it is your salespeople or whoever it is extremely important to do active listening. So therefore, before you start, because the product is, I've already anticipated all your needs, and this is what it's going to satisfy. It doesn't work, unfortunately, that way, right? In here, it is going exactly the other way around. Therefore, listening becomes a very important trait in anyone, and you need to develop that as founders or whoever else. Right? We talked about long term. Someone talked about it long term. I think you talked about it. This is a relationship, and in an enterprise, it will start with one department. It will start with one pain point, and it's going to morph into something very, very different. And that's where the farming comes in. So while in a product you're a hunter, because you're going from one deal to another deal to another deal, and all of that. Whereas you when you get into an enterprise, think about an approach of a farmer. You're going to keep nurturing, you're going to keep cultivating, you're going to keep harvesting, you're going to do the same cycle over and over and over and over and over again. So therefore, you need to in your what do I say, your client base, you've got 40 clients, 700 clients, whatever it is, you need to do a very honest assessment of which of these customers need farming, where I see a potential that they are going to grow into $1 million accounts or $2 million accounts, $5 million accounts, and which of there will be a long tail of those guys who are just a product, which is absolutely true. But that is an assessment you got to do when you're doing your business plan.
I want to add one. This is so important that not just in sales, this part, the farmer part. At some point, if you're a B2B SaaS, very soon, next 2-3 years in your life, after you start earning revenues, 3-4 years down the line, mathematically, your retention is more important than your acquisition. Retention is all about.
So spin is a methodology that, so this is, maybe I don't know whether you were there, what the stage we are in right now is we are trying to figure out that your organization needs a methodology to sell. And what are the different methodologies to sell? So this is one of them. So where you understand what is the situation that the client is in, right? Which is the good situation. And that situation, what are the kind of problems that are arising out of that situation at this point in time? So you do a lot of fact finding, you do a lot of that stuff. Then you're looking at, okay, what is it that you need to do in order to implement this particular solution to solve that particular pain point. And then you obviously look at the need part of it.
So the emphasis on the analysis specifically.
Analysis. So in solution selling, one of the key thing is first analyze where the problem is, where the pain is, and do the diagnostics. Only then prescribe. So that's the fundamental principle of this thing. So there are different methodologies. What I personally like is the challenger sales, which is basically you are great in your domain. You understand how well document intelligence can be built, how well maybe patent automation intelligence can be built. So you know your domain extremely well. First thing you do is you start teaching. So you bring a lot of interesting insights into the enterprise. Then you start understanding, by doing that, you start understanding where the problems are and all of that. Then you start tailoring your solution, and this is not your software. Your solution as in the way your approach towards it. You start tailoring that approach towards your client, and then after that you take control. You don't leave it for the customer to then figure out what to do with this analysis you've done or the recommendations you've done, but rather now you are taking control of the sales completely, and you are now becoming an advisor. You are now proposing. Now in this, what happens is, this is a great sale. So 70-75% of the most successful enterprise sales companies use this as a methodology. And that is the reason why you can go and crack these very large, when someone says that I've closed a $1,000 million or $100 million deal or whatever, this is exactly what is happening there. Right?
Yeah, Parag, especially in the startup, and when you're talking about the enterprise, one is, of course, I mean, if it is relationship-based sale, which is a different thing. But how do you even build a credibility for the big enterprises for them to trust?
I'm just coming to that. How to build credibility, right? So in consultant selling, I think most importantly, the salesperson acts as a consultant. We talked about that. It is very important with the listening, building that trust is very important. Only after you listen can you build trust. These are some of the traits of a good consultative salesperson. You've got to be curious at the first. You've got to be listening. Most importantly, you've got to be able to understand and ask questions. So you cannot have a salesperson who just talks about features, but rather you need someone who can ask questions and unearth the problems, right? So therefore, in the entire process, research plays a very important part. So bulk of the problems that you face in the later part of your sales cycle, the genesis of those actually lies in the research, the bad research or the good research you've done, right? So it is very important for you to understand that when you're getting it. Now I'll talk about very quickly about research. Let me actually look at building trust. Most importantly, Shivani, building trust, right? Building trust will always, first of all, trust is built over time. It is not one call and two calls and two meetings, suddenly trust is built. Right? So most importantly is this whole idea of open-ended questions. There are different techniques how one goes about it. But the most important thing is let the client speak. The more you get the client to speak, the more you're going to understand. And based on that, you will be able to frame your solution that you're proposing. Again, here in this context, the solution is not the software, but the solution, how you're going to configure and deliver it, right? This is something which I just kind of put up. These are some of the pain questions that you can actually ask, right? Uncovering the real challenges. So what are the challenges you're facing? If you don't do this, what are the kind of problems will actually surface here? What is nagging? What is holding you back? So these are the kind of questions you've got to be asking your prospects, your champions or whoever, and this is how you need to push, right? Most importantly, you need to confirm. You need to constantly be confirming. So what you're telling me, this is what it is. Have I understood it correctly? So it's very, very important for you to reconfirm that you've understood the problem correctly. Because the more times he keeps telling you the problem in different ways, in his mind, he or she or whoever is articulating that problem better and better in their minds. So the articulation of their problem becomes much more crystal clear. So things like that, right? So this is how you start. This is your discovery, and discovery is the most important phase in enterprise sales. If you do this right, everything else just follows after that. Because as you are discovering, and then thereafter you are giving valuable advice. So after you've discovered, now you come back, you then put all the problem statements that the customer has actually talked to you about, and then you start framing what is the kind of advice you're going to give. Now there are several texts, and this is where the ROI pitch we talk about, right? Now ROI in my view is just a smaller part of the larger business case. Okay. I think product demos, I think just some nuggets here. Everyone knows product demos are very important, blah, blah, blah. But most important thing again and again, I keep reiterating to you, my team, is that you've got to talk about your most powerful features first, and always tie it up to the discovery you've done and the need that you've uncovered and the pain you've uncovered constantly. Someone had asked me a question on that on the registration, is that, oh, there was this customer who came and they saw the demo, and after that there was a radio silence. They never came back. The reason why it must have happened is because probably they just did a demo which was very, very suboptimal. It was only features, right? So because you've not spent any time on discovery, that's the point I'm trying to make.
And simple trick in your statements. Whenever you talk about a feature, start with the impact of the feature, then talk about the feature. Make sure that in your mind, you don't talk about the feature and then the impact. So if feature की बात करेंगे तो वो कहीं और चली जाएगी. Start with the impact. Always start with the impact.
Okay.
And rather start with the why the feature was great. Again, start with the why.
Right. Just last point here which I wanted to make is that every time you talk about a key feature or whatever the pain, and you finish logically a certain section, it's very, very important to summarize that and ask a counter question. Ask a counter question. Then they will tell you where they stand with this particular feature or this particular thing. Right?
This is $100 million
story. Most importantly, you come and you've done all of this, close ही नहीं हो रहा है, उसको 8 महीना लग रहा है, 20 महीना लग रहा है, all of that, right? So therefore, it's very important on the closure part of it. I've come to the closure now. What are the next steps? And most importantly, what are the next steps? Ask it twice. Always ask it twice. Okay, you've got to be able to. So what are the next steps? And then again, okay, this is what I've understood. Are these or anything more? Very, very important, because suddenly he'll spring up surprises. Oh no, but you know this. There's an external consultant who also we have on the board, and he will also want to take a look at the product. And then you've again gone back to the square one. So it's very important to ask this, right? Again, don't shy away. If you think it is in the range, go take the shot. Go for a closure. Ask, can we conclude this deal up to June 2024? Ask for that. That is when your champion or whoever is going to take it back. Oh no, June 2024 तक होगा नहीं, because procurement को ये करना है, budgets approval होना है, ये होना है, वो होना है, right? That's where they'll tell you, they'll reveal you the right thing.
It's very important. I don't do this.
Thank you.
Anything more important in this sales process is the buying process of the customer. That's more important.
So therefore, it's very important, and I use something called a close plan, which is you've got to have something called a close plan, where everything, right from action items, outline, the follow-up items, the key stakeholders, their problems.
Be shameless.
Sorry?
Be shameless.
Be shameless. Yes, I always say that. Be shameless. So anyway, so the whole idea is, what is your path to a signature? You've got to be able to understand that. In an enterprise, there will be 20,000 people coming at different in different cases, trying to derail the whole process, right? Okay, one of the big challenges that the C-suite, you guys face is how do you reach the C-levels? Ultimately, that's where the decision making happens, right? Most importantly is your champion is who will take you to the C-suite. You are never going to have that access. Now, the champion, many a times, that champion is very cagey because he believes that, oh, the evaluation is not complete. He believes that, oh yeah, but I'll be favoring only you, if I take you to this thing. Oh, there will be, as a part of the process, our senior management will anyway meet all the 3 vendors. Those kind of things, they keep springing on you, right? Now, you've got to be with your buyer or with your champion, have some kind of a social contract. And that's where the psychology of sales comes very, very in. Therefore, you've got to understand that you've got to be very clear to saying, yeah, I will do these 2 things. After that, I need this. Because that is what our contract is. And the social contract is very, very important. Most importantly, if it is not happening, you've got to have the courage to call it up with your champion. It is very important for you to call it up. I'm going to move forward. Okay. Now you've got into the C-suite. Now the first important thing you need to do there is never again, in the first meeting, we should never do with the C-suite. It has to be a build-up. Do your homework, earn your stripes, only have that. You have to have the right to go and sit in front of the CXOs, right? Start the meeting with what we know. Now that's important because you need to, again, you're meeting that guy the first time and probably the last time. So your credibility comes in very, very important. So therefore it's very important, instant credibility ye karne ke liye. This is what we know till now, right? Most importantly, this is based on the research discovery. It doesn't mean that sometimes the senior management will also give you some nuggets of problems that they are facing, which may be related. In an entire enterprise, there is something called a pain chain. My pain is my pain at this point in time, but it's impacting him. What is impacting him is his pain, which is impacting him. So there is something called a pain chain, which goes all through the organization, right? The pain is the business guy says that I am not winning more business, I'm losing business. It manifests. So why? So then the CTO's pain chain is that the software is being down for the last whatever. It's very erratic. Then the CTO, it may be a pain for the procurement guy or the finance guy that there's not enough budget allocated to it. So if you see that one single pain chain to saying I'm losing customers has its roots across the organization. So in an enterprise, you've got to understand where that is, right? So therefore, it's very important to research and they will tell you what the pain is. Don't lock in the next steps always, because that looks very trivial. Okay. Anyway, in the entire thing, very important, I think, build on the relationship, blah, blah. Most importantly, never ever not keep in touch. Because majority of the enterprise software fail and you have a better chance to move on. Always. The projects in enterprises have a highest failure rate.
I got the first success. I asked that closure question and he's ready to close on Monday.
Wonderful. Perfect. So if you really look at it, the buying process that we've been talking about, right? The customer always thinks in 3 different things. Okay, why am I buying this? Okay, then they get into what am I buying, and then how should I buy it? Right? This is typically how they do it. Now, if you really look at it, this is how the entire methodology gets built. So, to someone's point, sorry, Saurabh, you were making a point. Is there an automated tool for this, right? Now, you don't frankly need it because as far as this is the common language that everybody within your org follows, it's good enough. Whether you do it over Excels or a good sophisticated CRMs, right? So most importantly, in the why phase, they are internally developing a business case. They are trying to get budgets allocated. They are trying to understand what they believe is their pain and so on and so forth. After which they get into the whole evaluation cycle. they'll send 3 RFPs out to 10 vendors, and we'll shortlist. Then there'll be demos and there'll be POCs, and the whole work starts. And then afterwards, you come to this whole thing about contract negotiation, blah, 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 right? So typically, and this is where you need to map your sales process. So if this is the buying process of your client, you need to map the sales process this way, right? So you need to have a planning phase, you need to have a solution development phase and a POC, and the way you are going to do your demos. And then what are you going to do in the procurement cycle? So you need to have your own processes. And therefore, these are the different activities. Now, this is the sample activity that I used to run for my clients. And there are a bunch of things that you do, right? And whether you do as an organization, you do as a salesperson, as a singularity, there are each and every of these have activities associated. So for each stage, for it to go from stage 1, let's say stage why to buy to what to buy, or for that matter, from create, qualify, if you want to move, there are criteria. Certain things have to be done before it moves into the next thing, right? And this is where and what are the verifiable outcomes? So there are tools that you need to develop within your system saying if the customer has signed up, or my sponsorer, for example, or my champion has said yes, this particular need, the way pain I've articulated is correct, okay, tick in the box, which means that you are already scoring better than your other competitor and so on. So there are several tools that you've got to develop as a part of this. And then of course, most importantly, common language. When I say that I have got 40% probability of win, everybody in your org should know, 40% means these criteria are met, right? That is very common, and that's the only way you're going to be scaling. Otherwise, you'll never scale. You'll always remain I have these 3 leads or 10 leads, and they're in different phases, but then you believe that everything should close this financial year, and you'll constantly be second guessing yourself, right? And those out of those 10 deals, none of them will fructify.
How often have you seen, sorry to ask question?
Over lunch?
Right.
What is the strength of sales?
Yeah, so the strength of sales is actually how confident are you that this deal is going to be closing in this particular quarter? So one is saying, is this deal going to come to you? But there's no point if it's going to come to you 20 months down the line, right? The strength of sale really gives you a nice handle to determine what are your chances vis-a-vis the competition, right? And then there are criteria.
It's in days, like it will happen in 35 days or 28 days. What's the unit of?
That's a percentage.
That's strength of sales.
Strength of sales percentage. It's a derived thing out of certain criteria. Okay, most importantly, in anything, like you have product reviews and everything, cadence in sales is the most important. And these are some of the samples. You've got to have cadence. And now, while you will say, oh, I have a pipeline call with my sales guys every day or every week, that is not enough. Because your elements of your sales are very different. There is a pipeline, then there are deal reviews, which are specific to those 5 deals for this quarter. Then there are something called demand gen, because what is coming into your funnel, how are you tracking against your demand gen? What are some of the key deals, which is basically your farming deals, which you have taken a task to say that this year I'm going to develop these 5 accounts. What is happening on those? You've got to have reviews around those and so on and so forth. Partnerships, very important in markets. What are we doing with partners? Now, you may have just 1 or 2 partners right now, so you don't necessarily need a cadence around it. But if you say that I'm going to go into the market with a partner strategy, then you better know what all does the partner strategy mean. Who are these partners? What are the criteria of selecting a partner? Why will they take you on board and not someone else? Have we built collaterals for the partners? Blah, 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 right? A whole bunch of things. And of course, quarterly, how you track it. So these are some of the cadences, at least I used to run, but it's important for you to and then as it were. And that's it.
Wow.